Okay. Great, let's get started. Your first task will be converting an implementation of the priority queue data structure from Java to Python. And you'll do this without the AI support. Your second task will be converting an implementation of the try data structure from Java to Python, and you do that one with AI support. We'll also take a brief break between the two tasks since the session will be about 2 hours. First, let me tell you a bit about this code translation task. The task is to produce a complete and working Python translation within 30 minutes. By complete, I mean that all the functionality and documentation from the Java code should be translated. And by working, I mean that the Python code should be tested for correctness. We're not providing tests, just you can write your own informal tests to verify that things are going. As I mentioned earlier, there's more work to accomplish an absolutely perfect translation than what can be done within 30 minutes. So really, I'm asking you to just do as much as you can in the time that you have. But there may be trade-offs in how you spend your time, such as whether you choose to translate all of the functionality first or translate a portion of it while testing to make sure it works. How you navigate this trade-off is completely up to you. A few other things I should mention about this task. You'll be using an online version of the VS Code editor in the study, which has a few minor differences from the desktop app. In general, all the menu commands and keystrokes are available. It should just work, but please let me know if you encounter any difficulties. I won't be able to answer any technical questions about the code or what it's supposed to do, but I can tell you that the Java implementation is correct. When you make the translation, please try to preserve the naming of the class and method names, but we're less concerned about how you name the variables. You can also use whatever resources you feel would be helpful, such as searching the web or Stack Overflow or running any of the code, since we've installed Java and Python in the editor. I'll give you a 5-minute warning when the time is almost up, so you know to start wrapping up your work. We also ask that as you work on the task, you think out loud and tell us what you're thinking and what you're doing. This really helps us understand how you approach the task and what you're thinking about as you do it. If you're quiet, I may remind you to keep thinking out loud. Do you have any questions before we get started?
I've never used VS Code before, so, well, I mean, I presume it's just an ordinary editor, so.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you a little help getting it set up before we start the timer. Okay. So, why don't you share your screen? Oh, do you have your VPN on?
I don't. I need it on, yeah.
Yeah, you'll need it on to reach the VS Code. And then share your screen, and I will send you a link. Sending it in the chat. So if you could share your screen, that would be great. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
That's you got a big screen, do you?
It's on the laptop.
Oh, really? Let's see. Oh, okay. I can read it. Sometimes we have to ask people to kind of zoom in a little bit so that it's visible.
Right.
So on the left, in the very leftmost column, you can see there's a Java file and a blank priority queue py file, which is where you put your results. You can split the screen if you want by clicking on the little rectangle in the upper right-hand corner under where you have other bookmarks.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, under that, there's the rectangle. That'll split the screen for you.
Right.
So if you put them side by side, people usually want to do that. And to actually run the Python when it's when you're in that window, if you click the little triangle next to the split screen icon,
Oh, okay.
that will do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this task, you'll translate the priority queue data structure from Java to Python. You'll do this one without the AI support, so you can copy and paste or you know do it however you see fit. Um, uh, Put your solution in the priority queue PY file. I'll start the timer now. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Ready to begin. And remember, think out loud as you're doing things. So
Oh,
that
yeah. Okay, right. Well, I'm basically just copying everything so that I have all the right names of functions and so forth.
got it.
So this will take a couple of minutes just to get all that part ready. Sometimes you forget that coding can be tedious, huh?
Yeah, it's like 95%, right?
Yeah. Okay, we have a skeleton now of effectively what the Python API would look like, broadly speaking. Of course, it won't run at the moment. So now we'll be into, I'm going to go Google and see what we can go to Stack Overflow or something and see what a priority queue in Python might look like and see where we go from here.
Well, remember there's a Java that you've got the algorithm laid out in the Java.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We're not asking you to find a priority queue and just bring it over, but to translate the one that's there. And if it would be helpful to split your screen, that's absolutely up to you, but I'm just reminding you that the capability is there, so you can sort of have them side by side.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. What are you, if you tell me when you're searching for stuff, what you're searching for?
Yeah, I'm just going to look for well, I suppose it's not really necessary to look for an efficient array implementation in Python. Just any array will do, I suppose. I actually can't remember what enumerate returns. I have to look it up. Two values or one value, I can't remember. I think it's two. Yeah, it's two. I'm just checking if there's an easy way to insert into an array in Python, or we have to use something a bit more exotic. Okay. I don't know why it's marking everything in red, but anyway, we'll worry about that later.
What are you looking at now?
I'm going to see if there's a quick way of deleting the queue. But maybe a stack would be better to use, or a deck or something. But anyway, we don't have that much time, so I'll just keep on going. A deck probably would sound like the right thing, but anyway. How are we doing on time?
You got 14 minutes left.
No.
I missed what you just looked up. He's too fast for me.
Oh, I'm thinking about whether to write a unit test or just dump it into a main here. I think I'll just dump it into a main. It'll be quicker.
It's fine to just, run your test at the bottom if that's what you want.
That might be just save
Sure.
time.
Yeah, you don't have to get fancy if you don't want to. Some people have written unit tests, most people have just made some calls at the bottom of the file. And
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's 14:30.
Thanks. I find that quite useful to remind me that I have a meeting
Mm.
because I often don't get the notifications don't seem to always work for whatever reason on Firefox.
Lots of talking machines around the house myself.
Is this thing compile it or something?
All right, so now you're
Here we go. That's fine.
you tried running it. I missed that too, right? And now you're debugging the code.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a look at a couple of functions and
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
What you thinking about now?
Oh, just having a look at the back to the Java code where it's it looks like it's doing some kind of, it's not just really inserting, it's doing a kind of a setting two different values separately
Mhm.
in here. So in my code, in the Python code, the very first part, I just run through it, find the position where it is, and insert it. But when you got nothing in it, that won't happen yet. So just double check what the Java version was doing. It's quite some time since I've looked at Java, to be honest.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah, it's you know, it was like that with C++ and the move to Java. Now it's a bit like that with Java and the move to Python. You know.
I hear you.
Anyway, I'll skip that part for now. Okay.
It's your 5-minute warning.
Cool. Okay, so now I'm adding an array to the existing one, but it's adding it as a single item, so I'll have to break that out into individuals. Yeah, but here it's an array within an array. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly Google adding two arrays in Python. There's probably some simple way. Using asterisks in Python still looks weird to me. I always think of pointer notation, but anyway.
Yeah, me too. What is it, Tim?
Well, that one there is dereferencing the whole queue into an iterable, and then so is that.
Oh, I see.
Basically making a new array out of the two bunches of iterables. So again, it just doesn't really look like it reads well, but in fact it works. So.
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I've used it with a package called iter tools before, but again, it's like unless you're doing these things every day, it's kind of hard to remember exactly the syntax. So I'm going to go back and look at this heapify function. Okay, we're not going to get to implement that in 2 minutes.
That's time. Pencils down.
All right.
All right. Hey, great job. That was terrific. A lot of people don't even get as far as testing when they're writing it themselves. I'm going to next give you a link to a survey to fill out, where you can reflect on the experience you just had.
I'll stop sharing the screen for a minute, will I?
Yeah, just make sure that you've saved the file. I think it saves automatically, but I don't trust it. You know, like Command S will probably do it.
Yeah, I've done a Command S, so okay.
Okay.
Maybe. Well, yeah, okay.
Okay. Let's see. All right, here's the survey. Yeah, and if you can share your screen and talk aloud while you're thinking about the questions in the survey as well, that gives us a little bit more context. You know, some of these things are just like, you know, choosing a number. Okay, you are P20.
P20.
Yes.
Okay. Condition, no AI.
All right.
Data structure, priority queue. Yeah.
That's it. Great.
How mentally demanding was the task?
So if you would say out loud what you're thinking when you're deciding how demanding it was, oh, that was pretty tough, or whatever you want to say. So we sort of get a sense of how you're calibrating.
Well, I'd say because my relative lack of familiarity with Java
Yeah.
anymore it makes it, particularly when you're talking about something like, some
Right.
kind of, priority queue in this case, you'd have to be aware of what that was and so forth. So that's why I kind of filled out most of the other stuff before going into the tricky part about what the detail of that was. So in that sense, I suppose it was reasonably demanding.
Sure.
Okay, how hurried or rushed was the pace? Well, I mean, 15 minutes isn't ever going to be enough. Sorry, half an hour isn't ever enough time to do it. So that would mean it was rushed, I suppose. So we'll go with pretty high there. How successful were you in accomplishing what you were to do? Perfect, of course. Well, I suppose I got maybe what, halfway, I suppose. So are we saying that we're supposed to actually get it done in the half an hour? Well, then it's failure, right? So
Well, no, we told you we didn't expect you to
oh
finish.
yeah, okay.
You can factor that into your self-evaluation there.
Right. Well, I'll go midway. I got some of the functions were implemented. More than half the API was implemented, so that's not too bad. Where did you have to work? Yeah, well, had to be moving along, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. Oh, insecure storage. Not at all. Okay. So I copied the Java API, renamed, or not renamed, turned that into Python, which meant I had the class with the API in the class. Okay, then I started to implement, let's be accurate here, the easier functions first.
That's a strategy.
Okay.
Ran out of time. That was one of the steps in your process. I like that.
To what extent do you feel you understand how to Java? Given more time, there wouldn't be a problem, but in the time we had, not that familiar. I had to really look at it again, trying to remember what Java looks like. Yeah. Is there any other feedback I can share with us? I enjoyed it. Bit of fun on a Monday afternoon.
For me, it's first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
I'm outside of Boston.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So as close as is possible to where I am, while still being in America.
Yes. Okay, so we did it. Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna leave the recording going. We'll just meet back here uh, in 5.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Great. See, are you back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, shall we start session 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this task, you'll translate the try data structure from Java to Python with the help of an AI code translation system. This system is able to automatically translate code from Java to Python, but it's not perfect. So the translated code may contain errors in it.
Mhm.
will contain errors in it. If it's we use the system ahead of time to create a Python translation for you, which you'll see when you open the editor. How you use this translation to help you complete the task is entirely up to you. So I'm going to give you another link.
Mhm.
That should get you there. And if you would share your screen again. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so this time there are three files. There's the original Java file. There's a, a try.py for you to put your solution in, and there's a tryai.py, which is the automatic translation. And as I said, you can do whatever you want. Uh, with that, you can use it for reference. You can copy and paste it. You can work from it, but put your solution in the other file. All right.
Yeah, okay,
Any
that's
questions?
fair enough. Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
okay, so I'm gonna start the timer now, and you can. Good luck. Have fun. Starting now.
Okay,
And again, please think out loud.
right. So I'm gonna just quickly look at the Java code, see what it's supposed to do from the doc. Well, I'll take it on fate that it mostly works, and I'll copy it, and I'll go from there. So basically, I've copied it, and I'm going to write a test to test the API and see where it's breaking. I assume if you said it doesn't work, I'll assume it doesn't work. So we'll see what happens.
If it did work, you'd be done in record time.
That would be handy, yeah.
Yeah, that won't happen.
I don't know whether this will work. We'll see.
What you doing now?
I'm just trying to look up in the code where the why it's finding an error with this get children function.
It's 15 hours.
There you go. Looks a bit weird.
Now you're going back to the Java.
Come back to the Java, see if I can relearn Java, yeah. Oh, forget that. I'll just put a novelty, see what happens. Yeah. I have no idea what's happening with any of this code, so I'm just going to play with it and see what pops out. Yeah, okay, so it did something. Whether it's the right thing or not, who knows, but it did something. Same issue there. That can't be right. So it seems to be none here coming in the first time for some reason. I'm going to say this is harder than the previous one. The previous one was just, okay, copy it and start coding, but this is, okay, you really need to understand both the Java version, which I'm not going to look at, and then this version. So this is harder.
Okay.
Yeah, if it were me in the real world, I'd abandon this and start writing the code from scratch.
That's good feedback.
Yeah, it'd take too long to figure out why objects are known and all that. I'd go from scratch. Now, I guess I might not be representative of most people, but I think that's what I would do here, having spent whatever it is, 10 minutes at this.
Yep.
Well, we keep going anyway we've another 15 minutes.
Yeah, you got almost 18 left.
Okay. It's the only one. Yeah.
So are you, you're adding print statements to sort of trace it?
Yeah, just to have a look. Yeah, it's still the insert is broken. Yeah, so it's coming around. It's the second time through on this for loop is the problem. Okay. Um, I'm looking up what the set default thing does. Yeah, I just gonna abandon this part of it because I'll be here all day and we won't get anywhere. Again, I would have taken a look at it and said, okay, this is not usable code. I'll start from scratch. I think that's what I do.
Do you want to do that now, or you want to just move on and just do the survey?
Oh yeah, let's just skip the coding part. Again, it won't go anywhere really because it's not really that usable in the time frame.
Okay. All right. Like that.
Let's stop this one.
All right. If you could save that.
Yeah.
Okay. Take a look at where you were. And yeah, like sort of save it. This will be an interesting survey. It's a little bit longer than the last one since we asked a lot of questions about
Yeah.
how you found the translation, which you gave some interesting things to say.
Okay, I'll share this.
Thank you.
And P20, right?
That's right.
AI 3. Yeah, it's very high.
Okay.
Maybe not all the way, but very high. How worried? Well, I suppose it's the same as the last one, wasn't it? It is a bit rushed, so. But it felt more rushed because I was in less control of the, how would you put it, the actual coding, because, well, took what was there, which didn't really pan out, but anyway. Complete failure, I'd say there. Very high. A bit more irritated than before, but that's probably because it's not my code. So
All right. So you still put down very low for that, right?
yeah, not too bad. It's still useful.
Sometimes the scale switches back and forth to which end is the high end, and so I just wanted to make sure you were answering the way you meant to answer.
Well, let's just double check it. How annoyed were you? No, not that annoyed. No, a
Okay.
little bit more than previously, but not to any significant extent.
Some people get very annoyed when they see an error in the translated code, in the automatically translated code, particularly if they thought, oh, that was easy, why did it get it wrong?
Yeah, well, I suppose you prepared me for it not working, so
Yeah.
it didn't come as a surprise.
Right.
So okay, the overall approach, right? So I took the AI code as is. So I started to test the API. So then really the very first function didn't work. Insert was faulty, and I found it tricky to understand the generated code. So I quickly commented out some stuff, replaced some lines, and moved to the, I think it was the find function, which also didn't work. Faulty, and that's where my level of annoyance went from 0 to 3, and I gave up. Okay. To what extent do you feel 1%? Oh, not a little bit, maybe. Again, same answer here. Oh, document expired.
Was that the survey that expired?
Yeah, well, like refreshed, it came back. Hopefully, I didn't lose all that text.
That's
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Oh. I've never seen the survey expire before.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'm gonna make a note of that. I I didn't set up the survey or anything, so I don't know anything about it.
I probably won't remember exactly what I what I typed in, wrote the name.
Recover it and discover your inconsistency. I wouldn't worry about it.
No. Insert was faulty. Right, a few changes. Prints to debug. Find was also faulty. Okay. To what extent if it, yeah, only a little bit. And again, not that familiar with Java anymore. So I'll say it was convenient in the sense that it did produce a template, which is quite similar to what I did in the first exercise, but basically cutting the Java API and planting it in there. Say, okay, now we can just start blitzing through each function. So convenient in that regard. You know, because the code didn't work, it's actually costing you more time to figure that out. So
You can click that. It's okay.
I'm gonna say poor.
You write the translator, so you know it's not on. You don't have to worry about it hurting our feelings.
So happy that there was a template provided, which was convenient. but the debug effort.
I guess if your approach had been to take the template and just replace the code, you would have saved 5 minutes over the first time, right?
Yeah, probably because in the first exercise I spent 5 or 6 minutes just cut and pasted and editing Java to Python. Yeah, so that's true. Yeah. How did quality of translation match your expectation? Oh, okay. I'm gonna say it was actually better than what I expected, even though
very low expectations.
yeah, I actually do have quite low expectations.
Fair enough.
So, better than what I expected, but it didn't work, so fair enough, okay. To what extent did you feel the translations were useful? A little bit because it was an API, yep. Had errors. So what did you feel? Had errors? Yeah, a lot of errors, yeah. Helped you? No. Helped you understand? No. Taught you? No, not really. Did you feel that the word translation made your work difficult? Yeah, more difficult, yeah. Did you feel that the word translation made your work less? Yeah, slower. So yeah, I would have been faster going from scratch, yeah. But again, I completely accept that, other people may not say that, right? Because,
Sure.
I am,
We just want your answer. It's not for everybody, right? We
yeah,
are running
exactly.
like more than 30 people through this, so we're going to get a variety of
Right.
approaches and a variety of answers, depending on people's different personalities, level of experience with the different languages, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Because for me, I still think in terms of C code, so like so. I totally accept that that's not the same as a lot of people these days, How do you feel the provide translation of your work? Stance? Oh, so it's saying, would the quality of the work be worse or better? It's probably going to be worse, I'd say. Well, it's both bugs and fairly unreadable code. Okay, were enough translations? Well, there couldn't have been any more really because it kind of did match the Java version, right? So
Yeah. For some people, we provide multiple translations provided by the translator. Like maybe it's not sure about how to do something and it does it different ways.
oh,
Anyway, right. So we some people get 5 different versions of the translation.
well, I suppose it couldn't hurt to see
It could.
more versions actually. Maybe they'd be less buggy.
Well, yeah. Some people spent a lot of time looking at all the translations and trying to make them match them. That kind of.
Right. Mm. That's a hard question, actually. Number 22. I don't know. It's the short answer
That is an acceptable answer.
there. Maybe if there was some way of saying generate template only, generate
That's
multiple
interesting.
options. you know,
That's a good suggestion if you could put that down somewhere. I don't know where the survey that would be the appropriate place.
I'll put it in here.
We could do a decent job at generating the templates, and even if it screwed it up, it would be easy to fix that.
Yeah, I'd say generating the template would be, it'd probably be easy enough to generate perfect Python code in the template.
Right. You probably don't even need AI for that.
Probably not. For the following work conditions, to what extent would AI supported code be helpful? Okay, I wouldn't go near it for production code. Yeah, could be useful for experimental stuff, maybe. Maybe you could generate stuff quick. I would not be helpful in a big team, I don't think. Maybe in a smaller team, maybe. Of course. Maybe. Again, if it generated a bit better code, I suppose it could possibly be somewhat useful. Not under time pressure. Oof, definitely. Okay, so when the original code is written in a language with which I am unfamiliar, that's where the win could really be, I suppose. See, I suppose that it's mutually exclusive, really. The 30 minutes. I mean, if you had a day and you got used to it, it could actually be useful actually in that case. Okay, when the code needs to be done. Oh no, you couldn't trust it there. Okay. I'm not really sure I get question 25.
Well, we're thinking about how accurate the translation was. Sort of at which point, if it's making mistakes, at the bottom, if it's making mistakes on every line, how useful do you think that would be versus if it made, at the top there, if it made mistakes once in 100,000 lines, so the code was mostly correct, except there'd be an occasional
It's
bug.
15:30.
Okay, so it would be useful if there were, there's no such thing as zero bugs, right? So let's be
Right.
realistic. So
Yeah, can you write 100,000 lines without making any errors?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I suppose if it were 100 lines, you could probably say, well, that's fixable.
Yeah.
Of course, these would be ideal.
Yeah, I think you're going backwards there, right? You have to fix a line you just clicked extremely useful on every line. if there was an error on every line, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to. Oh yeah. So the bottom was you had to fix everything. Oh yeah, that's not
Yeah.
useful, of course. Oh, so yeah, so it goes backwards. And well, obviously that's extremely useful then. So is that. Even 1,000 lines would be pretty useful. 100 lines. Well, maybe it's more than that. Okay, when you're into 10, it's a waste of time, yeah. Okay. Well, it was interesting to see what it looked like, that's for sure. And it makes me wonder how mature this tech is.
Right, we can talk about it a little bit after you do the lesson, that I can answer your questions about the study and the technology and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So one last survey.
Okay.
It's probably almost as annoying as the coding test. I sent the link. P20.
So without AI was like greenfield development. Okay.
Hmm. Greenfield development, that's just like coding from scratch? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That, I haven't heard that phrase before. Maybe.
Oh, will it change it?
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. We've got the recording too, so
Oh yeah, cool.
we have the context.
No, I know that this is just you could just rep a directory tree, but I'd find it handy to know where individual APIs are invoked. I mean, it's pretty pragmatic type of thing, but it's something you find yourself doing a lot.
Imagine that as some kind of visualization or just like a search tool or
Well, it's kind of as you're coding, it can be handy, not like the IntelliSense stuff where it just tells you that some function exists, but more that you're changing something, but here's the downstream consumers of what you're doing. That's a very hard thing to normally find.
yeah,
So you don't really know what the impact is on downstream modules until they break in production, right? So that would be handy.
yeah, gotcha.
Either one of these two, I suppose, is engineer or architect is either one. So I'm mainly on the ML ops side, or AI ops, whatever. Same thing as those. So I don't specifically design the machine learning models, but I figure out how to run them at scale, basically.
Okay.
No. Okay.
Oh, fantastic. Um, so I can tell you a little bit more about the study now, if you're interested, or I can let you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So there are a lot of AI models being developed for code now, like to do code translation or generate documentation from the code, or take natural language and convert it to code. But there hasn't been much work yet to evaluate whether these models are actually useful for software engineers. You know, most software engineering tools are not probabilistic, right? You know, when you get an error back from your program, the first thing you think isn't, oh, I wonder if the compiler screwed up. It's not impossible, but
Yeah.
it's not the first thing. It's not your first the first place to look, right?
Right.
Um, so one of the things we're interested in is whether these AI produced translations are actually helpful. Do they make the work easier or faster? How good does the translation have to be for it to be useful? You know, are engineers going to be willing to work with imperfect code generators like
Mhm.
the translation? Um, we're also building tools for Visual Studio that'll let you try out these models like on your own code. So you push a button and it would do the translation, and it would uh, provide some additional help, like show you the correspondence. Like if you hovered over some piece of translated code, it would highlight the part of the original program that it came from,
Okay.
and vice versa. You could hover over the original code and it would highlight what that translated to.
Yeah.
Also with this generating multiple alternatives, we're finding ways of showing in the code the parts that the translator was unclear about, that were to try different things. So you know, it could highlight that and show you what it thought about in those for those sections. Just the parts that are changing. It's sort of a way to help people to focus in on the questionable parts of the translation. Of course, you can
Yeah.
be sure about a part and do it the same way everywhere and still be wrong. So it's not a guarantee even then.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But
But of course, it's going to be difficult because you know something that thinking about this now, that it may not be optimal to do something a certain way in Python that you would do it in Java, right? So
right,
there's always this phrase around that, oh, well, that's not the Pythonic way. That just
yeah,
looks like Java code translated to Python, and that kind of thing.
yeah. And the translator we were using was is called Transcoder and was developed by a research team in Facebook. That was pretty much the state of the art, and we were giving people good and bad translations where we actually sort of deliberately brain damaged the translator. You got one of the good ones. That was as good as it gets. That, that that's the state of the art in code translation right now. Where they did a study where they tried translating a bunch of functions, like from leak code, that kind of thing. You know, the kind of test problems they give at interviews these days. And they found that their code did about, I think it was close to 80% correct. If you consider correct that one of the 25 versions of the program it generated passed the test. So you get,
Okay.
24 wrong, one right, and that would be a check. That would be good.
All right.
But then, of course, the problem is, okay, how do you figure out which one of those is the right one? If you have a test, it's not that hard.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But you need the test, which is also true of human programmers, I
Yeah, absolutely.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you have any questions for me about this work or this study, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, I think it would be useful, I'd say, if you could get, people with, let's say, almost no experience of commercial coding to have a go at this, because maybe I'm set in my ways. I've been, coding a long time,
Right.
that, maybe my level of trust is not that high and so forth. But somebody straight out of college might, you know, give it more time. But, that could be worth looking at. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it could be a technology that's, might get more traction with junior developers, basically. Um,
Yeah, well, we are running this with a variety of subjects, so yeah, I expect we'll have some younger folks and older folks, everything in between. Um, yeah, but that's a good point, and I think the point you made earlier about uh, you know, 30 minutes, you don't get a chance to really sort of settle in with it and say, okay, so this is the kind of stuff it does, these are the kind of mistakes it makes. I'm just debugging, it's like I'm debugging somebody else's code and I can do
yeah.
this, I get a feel for it and you get more comfortable with the process. We're not really giving people a chance to do that.
Yeah, it could be a good point if you, like you just said there, if you became used to knowing the kind of mistakes that it makes,
Right.
that's going to speed things up then, right? So it could become more useful, exactly.
Yeah, right. And one of the suggestions people have made, uh, actually, this was mostly in our previous study, which was, we weren't actually them to code, but it was like, okay, so after I do the translation and I get it right and I'm done, I've tested it and all that, that should be feedback to the translator. It's like, this is what you should have done, and maybe we can use those examples to train it more and make it better and better, um, long term.
Yeah, I would say definitely having that positive feedback back to the training process would be very useful, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because actually the way that this thing is trained, it doesn't get examples of here's the code and here's the translation, which is the easy way to do it, right? That because there aren't that many
Yeah.
situations where there isn't a good source of that kind of data to because these things take a lot of training. So what they've actually done is they've trained it in an unsupervised way. They just show it a lot of Java code and a lot of Python code, and it figures out the correspondence between them. So
Mhm.
coming from that, so like certain words like for and if and return, those things are kind of the same across most of the languages that it's learned. Um, and then it starts those sort of form anchor points that it can draw correspondences between the languages and figure out other things that are equivalent even though they're different, like in the examples that you just did, it knew that a hash map was the same thing as a dictionary, and an array is the same thing as a list from Java uh, to Python. It just knows that, and even things like uh, the point and insert were called set default as the
Mhm.
equivalent to the Java, what was it? You know, uh, I forget the Java function, something like generate if new, if missing. Uh, it's
Yeah.
doing it's figuring that out itself based on lots of examples, which is kind of remarkable, even though it did screw up the set default call.
Yeah. That is kind of cool, all right. But again, kind of back to my earlier point about it'll end up being not very Pythonic looking Python code. It'll look a bit like Java, which can be okay, but
Right.
you often see a lot of debate about that kind of thing on Stack Overflow, saying, "Oh, that's not the Pythonic way to do this. It would be, a bit like that star thing I used in the first
Oh, yeah.
example."
No, I've never even seen that. You notice they did do things like change the Java camel case to Python snake case.
Mhm.
They recognized that transformation, move the comments from above the function to under the definition of the function.
Yeah,
Yeah, so some of those Pythonic conventions, it picked up from just looking at a lot of code.
yeah,
And
no, that's cool.
kind of remarkable, and it's basically using the same technology as machine translation of natural language, like English to French or whatever.
Okay, yeah,
Which is, I mean, the fact that it works at all, I think, is incredible. I would not have predicted that, because it
no,
doesn't really know about programming. It doesn't know what the programs do. They're just
Mhm.
patterns of characters. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
thanks for participating. Um, we will send you 250 blue points as a token of our appreciation. Um, uh, we really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this uh, user study, and you can look for P20 being mentioned in our paper.
yeah. Oh, no problem. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Always nice to look at something new that's going on. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was cool.
yeah, it's still got a ways to go before it's ready for prime time for sure. But this stuff is moving so fast that
Yeah,
we think we should be sort of ahead of the curve so that when the next generation of translator comes out and it's 10 times better and good enough for production use, so we have some idea of how people could or should interact with it. So
yeah,
that's our goal here.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. Thanks for that. Anyway, I enjoyed it.
all right, thanks very much. Thanks for your participation, and
Yeah,
it was nice meeting you.
yeah.
Take
You
care,
too.
Mark.
Cheers.
Yeah, have a good
Bye.
rest of the day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.